So if you're wondering why my eyes are double the size they normally are, I'm trying to distract you from the fact that I've been sick for the last week, and so my voice sounds like it's stuck in the back of my throat. So I figured I'll give you lashes that are close to God in the prayer that I can make through this video while still being able to breathe. Not since the very first season of the Queer Eye reboot have I seen a piece of media bond the queer community together quite like the Ultimatum Queer Love has. I do not know a single person in my community that does not have an opinion on that show. It's Pride Month, and my number one icebreaker has been just to ask people if they've seen it, and you're immediately best friends. Like, it's the fastest way to get to know anybody right now. And if you have seen it, everyone I know has an opinion on one person in particular. And that's who we're going to talk about today. Before we get started, for those of you that are new here, hi, my name is Evelyn. I am the internet's favorite bi-big sister. I am also a content creator and an intimacy coordinator for film and television, which is why I love talking about how we see queer people in media, which is what we're going to do today. If you like that kind of content and you want to see more of it, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the little bell to get notified, and let's jump right into it. So when I watched The Ultimatum, I specifically remember my first reactions to Vanessa being like, oh, okay, so she met her partner through her boyfriend, so she's dated a man. Okay, so possibly a bisexual, pansexual situation here. Please, dear God, be a good one. Just be a good one. Just be a good one. Followed quickly by, oh no. Oh, she gonna get the villain edit. Yep, okay, alright. And I think this was close to what a lot of people felt when we first watched the show. Now, I think pegging Vanessa as the villain for the show came pretty easily for people. There were a lot of things going on that we saw. But for me, it immediately triggered this kind of deep-set fear that really comes out of decades of seeing people that are bisexual and pansexual portrayed in both the queer communities and in the media as kind of these chaotic figures instead of just normal, healthy, happy people. So when I saw Vanessa, this was another instance where I felt like someone who's like me is going to finally get a seat at the table in queer media, but then immediately play the villain. And there are so many things wrong with that initial assumption. One, Vanessa did not state her sexual orientation on the show. She simply is with the partner she's with, and it's not really spoken of other than the fact that we know that they both met through their previous boyfriends. And when I did some digging on the internet, Vanessa consistently identifies as either gay or queer. There is an article from a while back where she identifies as pansexual, but from her own self-declarations, at least as far as social media goes, she consistently just uses the label queer. So right there, I'm immediately jumping into some assumptions. And I like to take a step back and go, well, why? And I realize something about myself. I've become really personally hypervigilant for this idea of the bad bisexuals, meaning the people that represent our community in ways that our community stereotypically sees us as. And there were things in Vanessa's behavior, at least her behavior as it was portrayed, that directly align with what these kind of bad stereotypes for bisexual people are. So when I saw those behaviors line up, and I have this minute piece of information of well, she's dated a man at some point, I immediately go into the bisexual apologist police where I'm all right guys, we got one. Yep, we found one of the bad ones. We can toss this one out and we can move on. And that's not the direction we want to be moving if we're trying to move our community forward. So, what are the things that I was seeing, and why did they lead me to thinking that Vanessa was perhaps one of our so-called bad bisexuals? Well, there are four main tropes that I see portrayed in media over and over and over again, and are also things that have been repeated back to me by members of the queer community themselves as reasons that they don't trust bisexuals or they don't particularly like them. And these are that bisexuals are hypersexual, unfaithful, confused, or just generally selfish. Some good examples of these tropes being blown up and slapped on a bisexual character and thrown into a piece of media are, say, Oberyn Martell or Jack Harkness for the hypersexual, Piper Chapman, Jenny from The L Word, or Tara Thornton from True Blood for being just aggressive cheaters. For the confused queer and or straight person, we have Santana Lopez from Glee or Cheryl Blossom from Riverdale. Both these characters were given many lines that equated to, are you sure you're not just gay, or are you sure you're not just straight? And they never really answer that question. And then for just general selfishness, back on my wall of shame, because I absolutely hate both of these characters, we have Piper Chapman and Jenny once again. I cannot emphasize how little I like these characters for so many reasons, including the fact that they are just terrible people that the writers decide to make bisexual to, like, add to layers of chaotic. And yes, I know Piper is based on a real person. The Piper after season 1 we can just assume is a fictional character. Okay, but with all stereotypes, they come from somewhere, right? Sometimes that somewhere is just an inherent bias, but a lot of times there's a grain of truth in every stereotype. So why is it that bisexual/pansexual people in particular have gotten associated with these 4 archetypes, either being one to the extreme or a combination of all of them? I'm going to break this down from my own experience as a bisexual person, from conversations I've had with other people, and just from my own observations of how bisexuals operate in our society. First, let's look at the idea of hypersexuality. Okay, why do we see bisexual people being constantly portrayed as just incredibly horny, incredibly promiscuous, incredibly out there, right? Well, first is the obvious. There is an assumption that because people have more options, they are more likely to sow their wild oats, as one would say. But I think this goes a little bit deeper than that. We live in a monogamous society that favors heterosexuality. So if you, say, are someone that's bisexual and you're not entirely comfortable with sticking out like a sore thumb in a society that doesn't particularly accept you, you're more likely going to just settle into a nice, comfortable, heterosexual appearing relationship and not really make much of a fuss of it outside of that. So a huge swath of the population is just kind of quietly living their lives with not much going on. So that means the much more visible part of the bisexual population are the ones that are more comfortable going out and playing the field. They're more comfortable being somebody that society doesn't always look favorably on. They're more comfortable expressing their sexuality in ways that their quieter counterparts might not. So you have only a certain percent of the entire community representing the whole community. The iceberg of bisexuality, so we'd say. Cue all of the Titanic memes. So when you've got a situation where only kind of the bravest and the boldest are the ones out in the wild being perceived as bisexual, well, that's going to lead to an assumption that all bisexuals are like that. Do I think this is something that's changing in our society? Absolutely, and that's part of the reason I make videos like this. Okay, so then let's move into unfaithful. Okay, why does everybody think that bisexuals are more likely to cheat on their partners than anybody else? Well, let's take a look at it. First, I think we need to acknowledge the very simple fact that when we live in a society where queerness is considered in many cases a negative thing or something that goes against your religion or your community or your culture, people end up in relationships that are not entirely true to who they are. We see this throughout all of recorded history. This can lead to people either ending their relationships when they've found the strength in themselves to live their truth, or if they don't have the skills to properly communicate, it can lead to infidelity. But this is not exclusive to the bi community or even the queer community. Infidelity is someone seeking something that they feel like they want or need or deserve, and not having the skills to acknowledge their current partner and their current situation in the way that needs to be done. This is an issue that is completely independent of people's sexuality. If it wasn't, we would see only queer people be divorced. Okay, our next bisexual trope is the idea of being confused. So for many people, experiencing what intimacy feels like with different genders can be a really important part of finding where they fall on the spectrum of attraction, also known as the Kinsey scale. However, when we assume that once someone ends up with a partner, be it their opposite gender partner or a same gender partner or someone that falls in the non-binary spectrum, that means that person is either now gay or straight, is a concept that we call bi-erasure. Who you end up with doesn't affect who you're attracted to. It's like saying that someone who's attracted to, say, blondes and redheads, when they marry a blonde, it means they were never attracted to redheads to begin with. I'm going to do the hair color thing a lot when it comes to sexuality. Now, for some people, having experiences with people of different genders really helps them hone in on where on the Kinsey scale they fall kind of to either end. But for people that identify as bisexual, pansexual, omnisexual, their attraction does not really tilt to one end of the spectrum or the other. They remain in some way or another attracted to people of all gender expressions. The confused label is something that I think people can identify with on a personal level sometimes, but more often than not I see it as an external label that people are slapping onto somebody who's experiencing multiple gender attraction and going, hey, my external observation overrides your internal experience. And that is what we don't want to do. We don't want to create characters or portrayals that say either explicitly or implicitly, this person just hasn't figured out what they want yet. Because it's true, we're all looking for love, we're all looking for companionship, we're all looking for intimacy. But again, this is not something that's exclusive to bisexual people. People of every orientation are out there trying to find that person that resonates with them, that's going to fulfill them in the ways that they need. So constantly casting bisexuals as the confused lovelorn is just another way of invalidating their sexuality altogether. Okay, and then that leads us to selfish. This is a stereotype, as best as I can tell, is kind of projected onto bisexual people from those outside of them, based on some combination of all the above stereotypes. People look at the surface level representation of bisexuality, and they see someone they perceive as having more options in dating, or as, wanting to break out of the rules of society and do things their own way at whatever cost. This is not an internal experience that's exclusive to bisexual people. This is something that people are making a judgment on. And they're saying if someone is bisexual, that means that they are more likely to be a selfish person. Which is why when I see bisexuality represented within people on screen, where at the core it is a selfish character that is in desperate need of growth, it hurts in many ways because it feels like saying that these two things are consistently interlinked. Like you couldn't possibly be attracted to that many people if you weren't just an inherently selfish person. Okay, so if we then zoom out even further and we look at these four individual tropes, we realize these are very human issues. These aren't just exclusively plucked out of some bisexual DNA strand. These are personality traits that any person can experience, largely bred out of some combination of internal and external pressures, which means that anyone could have any combination or all of these traits and not be bisexual, or they might be bisexual. But the fact that I consistently see some combination of these four things reflected in every single piece of representation that multisexual people get is why I am so immediately jumping to conclusions when I see some of these character traits in someone specifically in queer media that makes me go, oh no, here's another bad representation. And that's not fair to that person, that's not fair to that character, but it speaks volumes about how we're reinforcing these stereotypes over and over and over and over. So much so that even myself, someone who's lived in this identity for years, even I can jump to some conclusion that we've found a bad bisexual. Because I know that we're more than that. But I'm so afraid of constantly being shown as just these things. So, as far as Vanessa's concerned, I think, first of all, seeing your behavior on a very manufactured reality dating show reflected back at you through a producer's lens to millions of people is a harrowing and, I imagine, eye-opening experience. I genuinely just hope she has the opportunity to see some personal growth and, on the back end of the internet being the internet, get some peace from this whole thing. My critique is not with her today. What I really want to see is whether it's a reality TV casting department or a writer's room on a sitcom, I want to see conscious thought being put into the kind of representation that people are getting, no matter what their identity. And whether it's reinforcing stereotypes that are holding us back and making us more judgmental of each other, or if it's an opportunity to put someone in front of people that maybe doesn't fit what you think a good or a bad bisexual or a good or a bad queer person looks like. Anyways, that's all my thoughts for today. Now I want to hear what you think. To be clear, I have no interest in having a Vanessa hate session in my comments, so please keep it civil. Did you have a similar reaction when she mentioned she had dated men? Do you feel like there are other stereotypes or traits that are constantly applied to bisexual characters, whether in reality TV or scripted TV, that I didn't mention here? No matter what it is, I want to hear your thoughts. I love hearing what you guys have to say. And just as a reminder, if you want to see more content where we talk about queer media analysis and bisexual representation in media, make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow along, hit the bell so you get notified. And yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba.